We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
Hurricane Michael closes in on Florida's Gulf Coast as an extremely dangerous Category 4 storm, packing winds of up to 220 kilometers per hour and a huge sea surge.
At least 6 people have died and 9 are feared missing in flash flooding on the Spanish island of Mallorca.
IMF warns of risks to the world growth in its global financial stability report.
And Nikki Haley announces her resignation as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations in the latest departure from President Donald Trump's often shifting national security team.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. First to the Philippines, President Duterte said he does not have cancer after he admitted last week that he went to the Cardinal Santos Medical Center in San Juan City for treatment.
It's negative for, they had the suspicion, but they had, I said, this specimen taken out from both the esophageal tube and somewhere here.
We'll just print it.
Now, according to the Constitution, the public shall be informed about the state of the President's health in case of serious illness. Now, Malacanang has insisted there is no need for full disclosure as there's nothing serious about the President's health condition.
The Philippine government is providing $400,000 US worth of assistance to earthquake and tsunami victims in Indonesia, an envoy announced Wednesday. Philippine ambassador to Indonesia Lee Hyong Tanwi said of the amount, $300,000 US will come from the Philippine government, while the $100,000 will be given by the ASEAN Business Advisory Council Philippines. The ambassador said the first C-130 cargo plane of the Philippine Air Force is set to arrive in Palu on Wednesday. The cargo aircraft is full of relief goods and other materials in response to the request for aid by the Indonesian government.
In the past, both countries has been very helpful in terms of disasters that are happening to the two countries. We have helped Indonesia during the Aceh disaster and also the Yogyakarta. The recent earthquake and tsunami in Palu is a very big disaster for Indonesia. And as of today, I learned that our C-130 plane has flew out of the Philippines to bring all assistance to Palu. We also pledged to give a $300,000 for humanitarian assistance. In the past, both
Meanwhile, Hurricane Michael has strengthened to an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane as it rumbles toward the Gulf Coast of Florida, according to the National Hurricane Center. Now, it's said the storm is now packing maximum wind gusts of 130 or 210 kilometers, and it could grow even more and is expected to make landfall later in the day along the Florida Panhandle or Big Bend area as a life-threatening event. A storm surge of up to 13 feet or 4 meters is expected in some areas, according to the center. Separately, the National Weather Service in the state capital, Tallahassee, issued a dramatic appeal for people to comply with evacuation orders.
You're going to see a traditional powerful hurricane strike, very fast moving, high surge, and very, very powerful winds. So you'll see more power outages, and probably the damage to the power infrastructure is going to be more significant than Florence because it will be down power lines and poles. To Hurricane Michael is going to be a devastating storm to a part of Florida that has not seen a storm of this magnitude in quite some time.
Now, the National Hurricane Center said some areas of the Florida coast could expect storm surges of 9 to 13 feet and as much as a foot of rain. The heavy rains could cause flash floods and spawn tornadoes in northwestern Florida. About 120,000 residents were under mandatory evacuation orders in Bay County in the Panhandle, a low-lying area of beachfront resorts and retirement communities. In other areas, residents of mobile homes were urged to leave. Michael was forecast to have the power to uproot trees, block roads, and knock out power for days when it hits Florida. It is expected to weaken as it moves up into the southern or southeastern United States.
Meanwhile, in a news conference, Florida Governor Rick Scott said that as the storm approaches, there will be a significant threat of tornadoes and storm surges. Watch this.
Or more. Again, Hurricane Michael is forecast to be the most destructive storm to hit the Florida Panhandle in decades. This storm will be life-threatening and extremely dangerous. This storm will bring torrential rain to most of the Panhandle. This is not a slow-moving storm. This is a fast-moving storm. The rain's going to come quick. We're going to have flooding. Prepare for major flooding for this storm. The National Hurricane Center is forecasting storm surge. Think about this. 8 to 12 feet of storm. Indian Pass in Gulf County and Cedar Key in Levy County. That means the water will come miles inshore and could easily rise over the roofs of houses. Okay, so you're not going to survive storm surge.
Meanwhile, residents of Northwest Florida had until early Tuesday U.S. time to leave their homes ahead of Hurricane Michael, forecast to crash ashore midweek as a now major Category 4 storm. A major threat from Hurricane Michael is flooding associated with storm surge. Now, what exactly is a storm surge? Watch this.
A storm surge is a sudden change in water level caused by a hurricane or tornado. Strong winds circulating around the storm sweep across the surface of the ocean, pushing water towards the coast. When the hurricane reaches shallow waters, water has nowhere else to go but inland. Here, water can penetrate up to 50 kilometers in flat areas, causing massive damage to urban areas. Floodwaters can reach depths of 8 meters or more. Heavy rainfall, high tides and waves aggravate the devastating effect of a storm surge. Many parts of the world are vulnerable to storm surge. Most at risk are areas with wide, gently sloping continental shelves.
At least 6 people have died and 9 are feared missing in flash flooding on the Spanish island of Mallorca. A river burst its banks following heavy rain, and a huge wave of muddy water engulfed the town of San Lorenzo de Cadasar. Footage broadcast by Spanish television and local media showed cars swept away by raging waters and houses flooded. Local media said among the fatalities in San Lorenzo de Cadasar are a British couple who were swept away while traveling in a taxi. Spanish Meteorological Agency AEM said the area was hit with more than 8 inches of rainfall in just a few hours on Tuesday.
To other news now, Turkish television Wednesday released CCTV footage showing the moment missing Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi entered the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul and the movements of a team suspected of involvement in his disappearance. Now, Khashoggi, a Washington Post contributor, vanished on October 2 after entering the consulate to obtain official documents ahead of his marriage to his Turkish fiancée. Now, government sources said at the weekend that police believed Khashoggi was killed by a team specially sent to Istanbul, thought to consist of 15 Saudis. But Riyadh insisted the 59-year-old journalist had left the building and the murder claims were baseless. Khashoggi, a former Saudi government advisor, had been living in the United States since last year, fearing possible arrest. Local media on Tuesday reported on the possibility that Khashoggi was kidnapped and taken aboard one of the private planes. Both planes later returned to Riyadh, with one stopping in Dubai and the other in Egypt, according to pro-government Sabah Daily. Sabah Daily on Wednesday published the names and images of what it called the assassination team, including a man called Salah Mohammed Al-Tubaigi, whose name it said matched that of a lieutenant colonel in the Saudi Forensic Department. Sabah added that no body parts appeared on scans of the belongings of 7 passengers of relevance to the case at Istanbul Airport. Now, Khashoggi has been critical of some of the policies of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Riyadh's intervention in the war in Yemen.
German police have arrested a man suspected of the rape and murder of a Bulgarian television journalist, Victoria Marinova, Bulgarian officials said. But Bulgarian prosecutors said that, at least for now, the killing does not appear linked to her work as a journalist. The body of 30-year-old Marinova, who presented a current affairs talk program called Detector for the small TV and television channel, was discovered on a riverside path in the northern Bulgarian town of Ruse on Saturday. Authorities said she died from blows to the head and suffocation. She was also raped. German police confirmed a 20-year-old man was arrested in the town of Stade near Hamburg on suspicion of raping, robbing, and killing Marinova. Bulgaria's chief prosecutor Sotir Tsatsarov named the suspect as Severin Krasimirov, born in 1997, and said he was already sought in connection with another rape and murder. Bulgarian Prime Minister Boyko Borisov lashed out at international bodies and rights groups which had been quick to assume a political motive behind the murder. Bulgaria is regarded as a laggard in the EU in terms of press freedom, ranking 111th out of 180 countries, according to Reporters Without Borders. Widespread corruption, shady media ownership, and suspected collusion between journalists, politicians, and oligarchs have made objective reporting a constant obstacle course, according to RSF.
Shifting gears now, 51 people were killed when the bus they were traveling in overturned and its entire roof was ripped off in an accident in western Kenya early Wednesday. Kenya's police chief Joseph Boynet told Capital FM radio it is unfortunate that they have lost 51 people. According to police, the bus was traveling from Nairobi to the western town of Kakamega and carrying 52 passengers. The Kenyan Red Cross wrote on Twitter that it had overturned. However, more details on the cause of the accident were not immediately available. Footage from the scene showed the faded red bus lying on its side, the seats and mangled bits of metal exposed to the air, with the torn-off roof lying at a distance. Dozens of people milled around the accident, as you can see here, at the site, and goods were strewn over a large area.
Nikki Haley abruptly resigned Tuesday as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations in the latest departure from President Donald Trump's often shifting national security team. Meeting Haley in the Oval Office, Trump said she had done a fantastic job and would stay on to the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been an honor of a lifetime. And I will say this, for all of you that are going to ask about 2020, no, I'm not running for 2020. I can promise you what I'll be doing is campaigning for this one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. on the United States, what our role is in the world, the relationships that we want to continue.
She's done a fantastic job, and we've done a fantastic job together. We've solved a lot of problems, and we're in the process of solving a lot of problems. At the beginning, North Korea was a massive problem, and now we're moving along. It's moving along. Very special to me. She's done an incredible job.
More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Stay tuned.
For business news, this is Cesar Vallejos. The International Monetary Fund's latest World Economic Outlook sees global growth reaching a plateau with growing risks of recession on the horizon, said the fund's Research Department Director Maury Obstfeld in Bali, Indonesia, Tuesday. Obstfeld said some of that risk comes from the ramping up of the threats of trade sanctions, while there is also pressure on emerging markets from a strengthening U.S. dollar and rising interest rates.
The latest World Economic Outlook report projects that global growth will remain steady over this year and next at last year's rate of 3.7%. This growth exceeds that achieved in any of the years between 2012 and 2016, and it occurs as many economies have reached or are nearing full employment and as earlier deflationary fears have dissipated. Thus, policymakers still have an excellent opportunity to build resilience and implement growth-enhancing reforms. Economies are diverse and face an array of the impacts of trade policy and uncertainty.
Countries should take steps now to prepare for tougher times ahead, the annual report on the world's economy urged.
One of the lessons of the last crisis was that fiscal policy can be very powerful in combating recession. And so if you're in a situation where public debts are already too high, where markets might react adversely to a further increase in public debt, that could limit the positive effects of your fiscal actions. So, you know, to summarize, countries have learned a lot, but there's certainly more work to be done to prepare for the next recession.
LEH. 10 years after the collapse of Lehman Brothers sent markets into crisis, banks and governments have largely restored confidence in the stability of the world systems. But new risks are emerging, the International Monetary Fund says in the latest Global Financial Stability Report.
The global economic expansion remains strong, supported by still easy monetary policy. Stepping back, the global financial system is certainly stronger than before the global financial crisis, thanks to a decade of reform and recovery. However, while financial imbalances continue to build up, the new financial system remains untested. So, while there is reason for optimism, this is no time for complacency. Over the past 6 months, the balance of risk has shifted to the downside. Global growth has plateaued, trade tensions have escalated, and some emerging markets experienced capital outflows and asset price pressures. In addition, policy uncertainties have increased in a number of countries. To sum up, short-term risks to financial stability have increased and medium-term risks remain elevated. There are concerns that investor confidence may be leading them to take undue risks. Looking forward, financial stability risks could rise in the short term. Several potential developments could trigger a sharp tightening in financial conditions, an intensification of concerns about emerging markets, a broader escalation of trade actions, an increase in policy uncertainty, or faster than anticipated monetary policy normalization. So, this is a time for more proactive measures to safeguard financial stability and not allow optimism to become complacency.
Sub-Saharan African economies are still recovering from the slowdown in 2015-16, but growth is slower than expected, according to the October 2018 issue of Africa's Pulse, the biannual analysis of the state of African economies by the World Bank. The average growth rate in the region is estimated at 2.7% in 2018, which represents a slight increase from 2.3% in 2017.
There are increasing risks in the international environment. For example, trade war between our main trading partners that may imply a lower demand for our products, especially in China. There are increasing tensions in the international sphere, increasing protectionism and isolationism that threaten global trade and may have an impact on Africa. We are now projecting that Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, will grow at a rate of 2.7% in 2018. And that's just slightly higher than the 2.3% we had in 2017. This is certainly better than 2016, where Africa grew only at 1.5%. But this is just slightly above population growth. So we need to sustain reforms. We need to boost growth in our three largest economies, Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola, where the recovery has been extremely sluggish, therefore pulling down the average growth for Africa, where most of the countries are actually still growing at a hefty rate.
The country's trade deficit widened to $18.94 billion in the first semester of the year as imports continued to significantly outpace exports, the Philippine Statistics Authority reported. Total external trade in goods in the first 6 months of the year rose 6.2%, to $84.73 billion from $70.82 billion in the same period last year, the PSA said in its updated trade report. Imports grew 13.2% to $51.84 billion in 2018 from $45.78 billion previously. Exports, on the other hand, declined by 3.4% from $34.04 billion in 2017 to $32.89 billion in 2018. This brought the country's balance of trade in goods to $18.94 billion deficit in 2018, higher than the $11.75 billion deficit in 2017. Electronic products continued to rake in the most dollars for the country, with revenues of $18.33 billion in the first semester of 2018, up 5.4% from $17.40 billion in 2017. Outbound shipments of electronic products made up 55.7% of export revenues during the period. Other top exports during the period were machinery and transport equipment, metal components, ignition wiring sets, gold, copper cathodes, coconut oil, and other mineral products. Electronic products were also the country's largest imported commodity in the first semester, with inbound shipments rising 16% to $37.88 billion, comprising 73.1% of import payments. Other top imports during the period were fuels, transport equipment, industrial machinery and equipment, iron and steel, food and live animals, telecommunication equipment, plastics, and cereals. Trade still remained the most robust among traditional trade partners such as China, Japan, Korea, which has trade deficits with the Philippines during the period. A bill seeking to amend Republic Act No. 7042, or the Foreign Investments Act of 1991, in order to further open up the Philippine economy to foreign participation, secured committee-level approval in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. House Bill No. 4067, authored by Deputy Speaker Arthur Yap of the 3rd District of Bohol, proposes to delete provisions relating to the practice of professions from the foreign investments negative list, thereby lifting the restriction on foreigners practicing their professions in the Philippines. The measure also proposed to reduce the hiring threshold of foreign businesses wanting to set up shop in the Philippines with a minimum 100,000 paid-in capital to 15 direct hires from 50 currently under RA 7042. Yap said that the two changes can continually liberalize and open up the economy to foreign investments, thereby creating jobs. The House earlier approved House Bill 5828, amending the Public Service Act by providing a clearer definition of public services and public utilities in order to lift foreign ownership restrictions in telecommunications. That's it for business news. This is Cesar Vallejos and I'm one with 25. Eagle News International will be back. Stick with us.
sa top 30 semi-finalist ang dalawang entry ng Pinas FM DJ at Letters and Music host na si Aiki. At kailangan niya ang ating suporta. Iboto ang dalawa niyang entry para makapasok sa top 10 ng PhilPop 2018. Ang Oka, interpreted by Tyro Alfaro and Aiki himself. To vote, just text VOTE, space, NK22 and send it to 8933. At ang Promissory Note, interpreted by Yumi Laksamana. To vote, just text VOTE, space, NK25 and send it to 8933. Voting is until October 12, 2018 at 11:59 p.m. only. Vote now at ating iparamdam ang hashtag Pinoy Music Power.
Welcome back. Google launched a new version of its connected speaker with a touchscreen display designed to be a hub for smart home devices, but without a camera for privacy reasons. Take a look. The Google Home Hub, competing against Amazon's Echo Show, was unveiled at a New York media event at which the tech giant also announced its upgraded Pixel 3 smartphone and a new tablet computer dubbed Pixel Slate. The new speaker, to be sold for $149, is powered by Google's smart digital assistant and is designed to get the state of the entire home by connecting to other smart devices.
This is a new category. Google isn't competing necessarily at like a flagship phone where you know what a flagship phone ought to cost. They're trying to convince you to put these in your home and discover the value. And so therefore, being aggressive on price is very important.
Helpful phone. Introducing.
Now, Google also showed its new Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL smartphones with upgrades including edge-to-edge screens that offer more display space without increasing the size of the handset. The 5.5-inch Pixel 3 will sell from $799 and the 6.3-inch Pixel 3 XL from $899. The Pixel includes improved tools aimed at limiting screen time and allows parents to control device time for children.
I also think the new Pixel has a lot of really interesting personal AI features, like the ability to call screen. And I think that they'll be able to long-term use those kinds of personal AI features to differentiate themselves from the competition who are still trying to catch up on AI.
Are they helpful phone? Introducing the beautiful new Pixel 3.
President Donald Trump cast doubt on a UN report on climate change that had warnings about how little time we have to stop a global catastrophe.
Have you read the UN report this week warning about climate change requiring drastic action?
It was given to me. It was given to me, and I want to look at who drew it. You know, which group drew it, because I can give you reports that are fabulous, and I can give you reports that aren't so good. But I will be looking at it, absolutely.
What do you think about Hogan?
The White House issued no public response to the United Nations report, which was issued Monday in South Korea at a meeting of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a group of scientists convened by the United Nations to guide world leaders. Last year, Trump declared he would pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Accord.
In other news, a humpback whale calf is rescued after getting entangled in a shark net off the Gold Coast for some 2 hours. Take a look.
Bhutan holds the record as the world's only carbon-negative country, but major challenges stand in the way of the Himalayan kingdom's decision to follow a green path over a rampant economic expansion. Watch this.
Now, the Philippines, thanks to its spot in the Ring of Fire zone of Pacific volcanoes, has long been one of the world's top producers of geothermal power. But years of neglect have sent it sliding. Now, a surge of new exploration efforts are underway in a nation that has some of the world's largest untapped sources of volcanic heat, but which relies on coal for half of its electricity.
Ngayon, because of the RILO nga, talagang nagkaroon ng interest na encourage yung mga investors. Mataas ang interest. Ang solar, kahit wala, ang solar and wind, kahit wala anong fit yan, ha? Tuloy pa rin ang application dyan ng service contract. Kasi magandang negosyo na rin ng energy.
Now, one of the nation's freshly upgraded plants, the Maibarara puffs out white steam from shining metal, stacks on a jungle-covered hillside about an hour south of Manila. Now, high-temperature water vapor from the Earth's red-hot underbelly is piped to the surface where it makes power, producing turbines spin.
Yung mga noise naririnig, pero hindi naman sila nagrereklamo. Okay naman lahat.
The Philippines' 7 geothermal fields now supply about 12% of the nation's energy, with a long-term plan to nearly double capacity by 2040. The Philippines has the 5th largest geothermal reserves, behind only the US, Indonesia, Japan, and Kenya. Though nominally free, finding the resource is an expensive enterprise, with exploration wells costing up to $8 million each, with no guarantee of success.
At the end of 5 years, kailangan mag-declare ka ng commerciality. Again, yung commercial viability o feasibility.
So you invest for over 5 years and it's possible na wala kang makukuha na return?
Pwede. Ganon ka-risky ang geothermal.
We'll be back with more news when Eagle News International returns.
Stay with us.
In MMA, unbeaten Khabib Nurmagomedov will not be stripped of his UFC lightweight title despite his role in a post-match brawl Saturday, UFC President Dana White said in a website posting Tuesday. The 30-year-old Russian kept his crown with a fourth-round submission victory over Ireland's Conor McGregor in Las Vegas, improving to 27-0 in his professional career and 11-0 in UFC bouts. McGregor was issued a 30-day competition suspension by Nevada Athletic Commission or NASC after the bout, among several short-term bans for fighters on the card in what is a common move after MMA bouts, with no contact allowed until October 28 before McGregor's ban expires November 6. Nurmagomedov had barely released his hold after McGregor tapped out when he launched himself over the octagon fence, apparently targeting McGregor's training partner Dylan Dennis as security tried to quell the chaos in the crowd. Nurmagomedov was hustled out, surrounded by security officers as a pro-McGregor crowd cheered and threw drinks at him. While UFC President Dana White did not present Nurmagomedov the title belt, fearing arousing the crowd ire, he told the media in video posted on the UFC website that the Russian would not be stripped of the title, and any punishment for the melee after the UFC 229 would likely come from the Nevada Athletic Commission, not the UFC. White said the Nevada Athletic Commission has not given Nurmagomedov his prize money pending an investigation of the situation and could impose a fine for his actions. In tennis, US Open champion Naomi Osaka Monday set her sight on Olympic glory in 2020 as she became only the second Japanese woman to reach the number 4 in the world rankings. The fast-rising tennis star, who turns 21 on Sunday, has already become Japan's first Grand Slam singles champion after she stunned Serena Williams in New York last month. And on Monday, she rose to a career-high ranking of 4 to become the top-ranked Japanese woman since Kimiko Date in 1995. Now she is targeting a strong performance at the WTA Finals Singapore later this month, and she could yet finish her standout season as a top-placed Japanese woman of all time. Looking further ahead, the Osaka-born dual US-Japanese national, who represent the country of her birth in tennis, has her eyes on the Tokyo Olympics. Everyone is really excited in Japan for the Olympics, she told reporters at the WTA Hong Kong Open, which she has been forced to withdraw from with a back injury.
I know that everyone really wants to do well. All the Japanese players want to do well, so of course I share that same feeling. And
Osaka, who has referred to her breakthrough victory at Flushing Meadows as bittersweet after it was overshadowed by an explosive row between Williams and the chair umpire, has been tipped for greatness by Chinese tennis great Li Na. But despite her stunning victory and subsequent catapult into global sporting fame, the 20-year-old bashfully still said she felt flattered by the praise from Asia's first Grand Slam singles champion. And in NBA, Boston Celtics guard Marcus Smart and Cleveland Cavaliers swingman J.R. Smith were each fined Monday by the NBA for their roles in an on-court altercation. Here's EBC Sports correspondent Valerie Gonzalez for the reports.
Boston Celtics guard Marcus Smart and Cleveland Cavaliers swingman J.R. Smith were each fined Monday by the NBA for their roles in an on-court altercation, the league announced. Smart was fined $25,000 for escalating an on-court incident during an altercation in which he was ejected. Smith was fined $15,000 for initiating the confrontation. The incident took place with 3.38 remaining in the first quarter of Cleveland's 113-102 home victory over Boston late Saturday. Smith and Australian forward Aaron Baines of the Celtics became entangled and exchanged shoves, with Smart entering the scuffle by pushing Smith from behind. Both Smart and Smith had to be restrained from escalating the situation. Smart was whistled for a technical foul and ejected. Smith was issued a technical foul for shoving Baines. The Celtics, who were outside from the NBA playoffs by Cleveland in last season's Eastern Conference Final, will not face the Cavaliers in the regular season until November 30th. The Cavaliers reached the NBA Finals in each of the past 4 seasons, but that was with 4-time NBA Most Valuable Player LeBron James, who departed Cleveland in the off-season to join the Los Angeles Lakers. For EN Sports, I am Valerie Gonzalez, and I'm 1 with 25.
Thank you, Val. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Bernaldez, and I'm 1 with 25.
Meanwhile, Jerome Thomas Tour de France trophy has been stolen after being displayed at a cycle show. Take a look.
Avec le maillot jaune, il donne un message également d'espoir à tous les enfants qui regardent cette retransmission.
Authorities say the trophy was stolen after being momentarily left unattended while the display was packed up at the end of the event. The matter is now the subject of a police investigation. Bike manufacturer Pinarello's managing director Richard Hemington said he was devastated by the theft. Thomas won the team's 6th Tour de France title in 7 years in July. It was the 4th successive Grand Tour win for the team after Chris Froome won the Tour and the Vuelta a España last year before clinching this year's Giro d'Italia.
All right, aside from social activities of the Iglesia ni Cristo, they also host cultural events such as the International Food Fair. Here's Beng Espiritu.
Since early morning, Church of Christ members from all over London arrived early at the venue to prepare their booth. The booths were decorated to style their country like United States, France, India, China, Philippines, and Korea. Each booth was also decorated to represent each country's culture and foods.
Ministers preach together souls to safety from 1 man to 1 million people, and everyone can see how the church stands today.
My stomach is absolutely full. Which food was your favorite to try? Everyone was buzzing to try all the delicious foods that the members of the Iglesia ni Cristo prepared. From the London Bureau, I'm Beng Espiritu, and I'm one with 25.
Thank you, Beng.
Thank you, Beng. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Alma Angeles, and
we're one with 25.